Countdown. We are live. Hello, welcome to the Willie Bragg Show, where I talk a lot of politics. And we are a very polarizing society with a serious culture war that's going on between the blue states and the red states. And there's always a tit for tat among the diehards, partisans on both sides. Well, my state's better than your state, and your state is a piece of shit. Mine isn't, and it's really over the top. And I hate to toss the word nuance because it's something that's used too much, but I'm going to argue that there is some nuance to this. But before I do, I'm going to play you a clip from Charlie Kirk on his, I believe it was radio show. I tried finding the actual broadcast itself, but I couldn't find it. And the only place I found it was on Secular Talk, the Kyle Kalinske show. And Kyle Kalinske talked about this the other day, and I'm not trying to mimic what he has to say, but I mean, let's just say I agree with what he had to say, but I want to add my particular spin to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that particular clip of Charlie Kirk, and we'll comment afterwards. So give me a moment here, and we will commence with the the crap that was uttered by Charlie Kirk.
Allowed to do. So you destroy California, burn it to the ground metaphorically. So then you want to go to Montana and Arizona to continue to spread the pathogen. States that saw the biggest increase in move-ins from San Francisco during the pandemic by raw numbers. And the fewer people are moving to California. During the pandemic, the rate of people migrating to California is at a record low, and out of is at a record high. The net domestic California migration by quarter, do you know how many people are leaving California every 3 months? 200,000 people are leaving California every 3 months. 200,000 people. And the amount of people moving into it are at record lows as well. So, but here's my provocative take. The people of Montana should say, you're not welcome here. You don't bring your values and your Berkeley worldview to this untouched slice of God's country. They're going to destroy Montana. They will. They're good at it. The activist groups will infiltrate. The racial groups will, in fact, now thankfully there's some good conservatives like the wonderful governor of Montana, my friend Governor Gianforte. But if this is not addressed and this migration continues, they're like locusts. They will not stop. San Francisco, destroyed. Montana, they'll destroy that. Then they'll go to Utah. Then they'll go to Nevada. Then they'll go to Alaska. Whatever the last slice of heaven is, they will try to bring hell to it.
Uh-huh. I guess you heard that the diarrhea that lasted from, almost 2 minutes from Charlie Kirk's mouth about red states always being better than blue states. I live in a purple state, North Carolina. It's purple because sometimes occasionally it votes for a Democratic president. The state occasionally votes for a Democratic senator, but it leans more red than blue. But it's I would say that North Carolina is a purple state. and you got basically a red state with some blue spots, and vice versa. There are blue states that have red areas too. So this whole thing about, well, if you're from California and you decide to move to Utah, you better stay the hell away from Utah. You think everybody in California, you think everyone that lives in California are a bunch of SJWs, pink pussy hat wearing liberals? Is that what you're thinking, Charlie Kirk? And what about, Charlie, what about people who live in red states who are basically big time Donald Trump MAGAs that for whatever reason they will want to move to a blue state? How will you feel if they try to keep somebody that thinks that Trump is the best thing since sliced bread, to forbid such a person from moving to, I don't know, to Vermont, or for moving to Massachusetts, or Connecticut, or New York, or California? You see how silly that is? That is silly logic. I live in a deeply red county in North Carolina. Johnson County, you can't get any more red than, I mean, it is flaming red, right wing, all, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's all, this is Trump country here in Johnson County, North Carolina. And, would I love to live in Chapel Hill or someplace like that? Sure. It's expensive to move. It's expensive for somebody who lives in a red area to move to another red area, or to move to a blue area, or somebody who lives in a blue area to move to a red area, or what have you. So, but I'm planning to move out of Johnson County at some point, hopefully before I retire. Having that said, when you want to compare blue states and red state, which is better, it doesn't come down to how one votes. There are other circumstances involved. I mean, it's what this agriculture base looks like, what is this industrial basis like, what is tech basis like, the school systems that exist. Let's see, other factors come in, in that regard. I mean, what kind of geography a certain state has, what kind of resources that exist in those states. And it goes beyond a party line. I mean, I'm going to give you my personal little prejudice about this. With my state of North Carolina. I live in North Carolina. I keep saying that, don't I? But I live in North Carolina. And as I said, with my own personal preferences or bias, I will say, one of my favorite places to visit, would love to live there. It's just a tad bit expensive, but it's a really awesome place to live. It's Chapel Hill, Orange County in North Carolina. There are some other places I like. I like Boone. I like Wilmington. I mean, there's some nice spots. Raleigh is boring as hell. Has nothing to do with the politics. It's just a boring place. I've just seen Raleigh more than I ever care to. It's just, but to sit there and to turn geography into partisan politics. I've actually thought about moving. Actually did think about moving to Wyoming or someplace like that, or if I were to move to Texas. I sure as hell would want to move. Maybe I would say maybe to place like Austin or something like that. If I were to move to Texas or what have you. But if you want to go and be partisan and say which type of states have a better standard of living and better quality of life, most of the time you're going to find that in more or less in a blue state, and I will tell you why. And I hate to bring it down to red state versus blue state, Democrat versus Republican, because the Democrats and Republicans, that's that kind of construct, partisan construct, it's so loaded with bullshit. But I have to respond because our Overton window leans far right in this country. And when people say Democrats, they don't mean somebody who votes for the Democrats. It's a blanket indictment of the entire left. To them, anything to the left of Ted Cruz are a bunch of Democrats. Democrats! Democrat Party! Democrats! 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 I mean, it's stupid. I mean, it's just, you know a bunch of Democrat cities. Which, when I hear Democrat-run cities, I know very damn well those are dog whistles. Because the hint is Democrat-run cities. That's where all the black and brown people live. And you know they can't run anything. That's basically what, when you hear a lot of radio talk show hosts and you people, Fox, when they start saying Democrat-run cities, Democrat urban areas, those are dog whistles. And there's no denying it. Some people are going to get mad, but it's the damn truth. And I'm not here to sit there and try to call people. I even get a little irritated when lefties finger point racist. Not everything is racist, but when it is, it needs to be called out. And that's one of those little dog whistles there. That's without a doubt, that's what it is. So, with regard to the to this red state blue state divide, I mean, Dave Rubin telling Joe Rogan, that name keeps coming up, telling him, you shouldn't move to Texas if you voted for Bernie Sanders. Dave Rubin, who the fuck are you to tell Joe Rogan where he can and cannot move? At least with that dumbass Ben Shapiro, he moved to Tennessee. I believe he moved his operations to Tennessee. But I know why he ended up moving to Tennessee, because he moved to Tennessee because he got ragged on for shitting on California. And honestly, I don't see where California would be so terrible for someone like Ben Shapiro, other than, maybe taxed a little bit too high. I could see where Ben Shapiro would have that as a problem in California. But everything else, even though he's a right-wing nitwit, he has the trappings of somebody of California. It is part of who he is. But he was consistent. I'll give him that. He was consistent, and he did move. He did move to Tennessee. I believe it is Knoxville, Tennessee. I stand corrected if I'm mistaken, but I believe that's where his operations moved to. So, and Dave Rubin himself said one time that he was staying in California for the time being because the people he suck up to, the people in the red states, they hate his ass because, Dave Rubin, likes to suck his husband's cock and vice versa. Not trying to be crude, but that's, I don't have a problem with it, but a lot of people in the red states do. And so he admitted the fact that he's gay, that put a pause in him leaving California, because, if you're gay in California, it's pretty good. You got protections that you don't have in places like Texas or Mississippi or Alabama or whatever, or Wyoming or Utah or whatever other states. But I heard that he's moving his operations to Florida. And while Florida have a piece of shit governor by the name of Ron DeSantis, who's not LGBTQ friendly, my understanding is that Florida is a fairly LGBTQ friendly state, in spite of it voting red, because there's a lot of city areas, and there's a mindset that's different, and so you'll have some rather moderate people that will be living there, that they're going to side with the concept of tolerance. But as I said, there's no to sit there and lecture people about about staying out of this area, because of the way you vote and the way you vote here, or your state tends to vote to Democrats. So what ridiculous. And if you want to talk about values being encroached upon with somebody from a blue state moving to a red state, I'll give you this scenario. Look on policy what happened to places like Wisconsin and Michigan in the last decade. I made a joke out of my frustration and anger when Wisconsin and Michigan became right to work states. That kind of shit exists in the South. Lived here in the South where union organizing is difficult. And part of the reason why union organizing is difficult down here in the South is because of right to work in some of the western states. So there is a Southern concept, right to work. Yeah, I know Robert Caffrey was from Ohio, and in some area on the issue of race, Senator Robert Taft was a liberal, and he actually altered civil rights legislation to his credit. But fuck Robert Taft when it comes to the Taft-Hartley Act, which basically weakened trade unions in this country. So think about it is that this Taft-Hartley shit plagued the South, plagued a lot of the western states. It's creeped on into places like Michigan and Wisconsin. And you know what that means? That means part of the South, values of the South, crept into a place where they were safe from right to work. And right to work is not democracy at the workplace. Right to work means the right for a company to pay people less. This is why a lot of companies went coming down here to the South from the industrial areas, and then to stop people. They didn't want to go and pay a union wage of $25 an hour or $30 an hour, so they'll come down to open up a plant in Tennessee or in Alabama or North Carolina, South Carolina, and pay somebody $9 an hour with no union. And then they're like, well, that's too expensive. We can go to Latin America, or we can go into Indonesia, or we can go into China. Nothing against people from Mexico, nothing against people from Indonesia, nothing against people from China. But you can go to those places where there's a lower wage. Union busting, and the fact that companies, if they could get away with it, would pay people next to nothing. Those are Southern values that's crept all around the country. And I say this as a Southerner. I was born in North Carolina, born and raised in North Carolina. So I'm not some Yankee that's sitting there trying to shit on the South. But I call bullshit that exists here in the South. With next to no unions in the workplace. Right to work. Which infringes on the rights of those who are lucky enough to be in a union job. Those who are lucky enough to be in a union job here in the South, their rights are infringed upon with the assholes that do not belong to a trade union and take our benefits and take they get the same protection and the previous job I had, the union takes care of the pension. When I retire, 9 years from now, I will get my union pension. Assholes that did not join the union are going to also get a pension. That's Southern values when it comes to the political economy. So Charlie Kirk wants to talk about, encroaching values. Of course, I know where Charlie Kirk stands on things like unions. If he could have it his way, there would be no such a thing as a union in the United States. It's almost like that right now. 6% of the workforce do not belong to a labor union. And everybody knows that's why we have a lower standard of living. Pat McCrory, one of the dumbasses that was governor of this state here in North Carolina, bragged about lowering wages, bragged about the low unionization in places like North Carolina. Values? Fuck those kind of values. This is why, when Donald Trump sat there and made that racist comment about Haiti becoming a shithole country, well, policies like the corporatists, Mitch McConnell and company, that has turned the United States into a shithole. Let's do what we can to not pay anybody anything. Oh, COVID, you get laid off from work. No health care for you. Fuck you. No health care for you. No UBI check. No, they're going to give you unemployment. Oh, you're making more money not working while you were working. That's so terrible. It was base. I love the fact that for a change, some low-wage person who was at a job being treated like shit, being paid shit, that when they got laid off, that they were actually making, finally, a little more money sitting down, protecting themselves from COVID, mind you, than they were while they were working. And when I hear the Mitch McConnells and the Lindsey Grahams talk about people being paid to not work or making more not working than they were while they were working, well, there's an answer to that, motherfuckers. You bring them back to work, you keep them at the same pace of wages that they had when they were getting unemployment. It'd be nice when they can come back to work, they get a pay raise for a change. I know I'm pontificating right now, but it still ties in to Charlie Kirk and his bullshit concept of keeping those blue state people away. And you see, there are red states, and red areas even, that I could move to and be happy. I mean, not everything is a monolith. I mean, yeah, you got blue states. And in those blue states, we're talking about Democratic Party voters, if you will. You got people who are on the Bernie Sanders, AOC bandwagon of trying to make the Democratic Party a better party. Now, I'm kind of disappointed with Bernie Sanders and AOC, but still, the case in point, they are theoretically the people who are trying to turn the Democratic Party into a Labor Party. Versus Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Barack Obama and Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer and fucking Nancy Pelosi and all those motherfuckers who like to keep the Democratic Party slightly to the right of the British Conservative Party, even though they don't think about it in those terms, but on policy and effect, that's what it is. And that is the Democratic Party in the blue states and in blue areas. Before I became a socialist, I was in the college Democrats in college, and I was, compared to everybody else, I was quite the flaming Marxist. I mean, I wasn't a Marxist, but I'm just saying, compared to everybody else. Everybody else was riding high on the Bill Clinton New Democrat, and they love being called centrists. Sort of like people in the UK they like the label New Labour under Tony Blair. The same kind of puke that mentality that hit the Clintonistas in the 1990s. We're still living with today. On the Republican side, red states or red areas, Republican circles, they're not a monolith either. You got people who drink the Trump Kool-Aid, the crazies by the name of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and dummies like like Louis Gohmert down in Texas when he was alive, Jesse Helms in my fucking state, North Carolina. And then you have the normal people in the Republican Party, as hateful as they are, Mitch McConnell, people like Lindsey Graham, late John McCain, people that type. And you even have another faction. You have libertarians who are as wrong as they can be on the economics. But in some areas, they're able to work with progressives on the other side of the aisle on some things that they find problematic, like Bernie Sanders and Rand Paul working together to try to put a stop to arms sales to Saudi Arabia. That's fucking base. Even Rand Paul, and some people call Rand Paul racist, but Rand Paul actually was addressed the concerns, maybe for different reasons, but he actually has the same concerns about law enforcement and the military. Law enforcement's getting stuff from the Pentagon, that Black Lives Matter are concerned with. So it's not all monolith. I mean, it's not all, it's just not as cut and dry as red state versus blue state. I mean, I'm a leftist. I'm a democratic socialist. And I'll work with a libertarian on things like free speech issues, with libertarians on anti-war, right to privacy matters, things of that nature. LGBTQ equality. Pot legalization. I'll work with a libertarian on those things. I'll go stand shoulder to shoulder with a paleo con on things like trade, things like that. Maybe some issues dealing with U.S. sovereignty. There's really not much I could work with someone like somebody who likes the establishment Republican way or the establishment Democratic Party ways of doing things. But I can work with people who differs from me, even within the left. I'm not a Stalinist. I'm not a Trotskyist. I'm not a Maoist. But areas that where we can agree on, we can work together. I mean, as I said, it's not as cut and dry as Charlie Kirk tried to make it out to be. And there are times I get into debates with people about it, and sometimes even I'll end up sounding like a generic Democrat on some issues, even though I think the Democratic Party's garbage. But because there is a left and right spectrum, and the Democrats and the Republicans right there are trying to grasp for the special interests and ideological little corners of the movement, what have you. But I am not a Democrat, and I can never vote for a Republican. I just think that both parties are horrible. So, Charlie, my next question is this. If you break up the two-party system, how will you define who can move where? Does this apply to the Green Party members? Or are they forbidden from moving to Texas? Are they forbidden from moving to Kansas? How does this work? Is it constitutional to do this? And you talk about your buddy Greg Gianforte. Hey everyone, if you don't know who Greg Gianforte is, he is a former congressman from Montana, who is now unfortunately the state's governor. Dwight, my condolences to your state for that asshole being your governor. Back in 2018, I believe, he was running for Congress in a special election. and he attacked a reporter from The Guardian. Hold tight.
And what you
We'll
thought
talk to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you
Okay,
have
speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't. Sick and tired of you guys. The last guy that came here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. The last guy did the same thing. You were the Guardian? Yes, and you just broke my glasses. You, the last guy did the same damn thing. You just body slammed me and broke my glasses. Get the hell out of here. You'd like me to get the hell out of here, I'd also like to call the police. Can I get you guys' names?
Hey, you gotta leave.
He just body slammed me.
You gotta leave.
That's right. Greg Gianforte attacked a reporter from The Guardian. That's the kind of person Charlie Kirk wants to be buddies with. His friend. If that's your idea of a friend, Charlie Kirk, fuck you. Honestly. Fuck you, Charlie Kirk. Anyway, I talk long enough. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. Feel free to share the comment. Feel free to, if you disagree, comment anyway. We can have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we're in fact the muckrakers of our time. Subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell. And until next time, keep that red flag flying. Wage that class struggle. And, of course, we're all Julian Assange. I conclude. Music. Until next time.
Do you have a dream
Oh God, commercial,
of creating an amazing space beneath your deck? Well, you're in luck.